Ooh, good news. Breaking news. Hamas and Palestinian factions agree to the Gaza ceasefire framework. From our side, yes, a senior Hamas official told Dropsite News. Dropsite News is 100% the most reliable source for Hamas-related matters. We'll see what happens from the Trump side. We'll see what happens rather from the Israel side. Sorry, not the Trump side. I guess I said the Trump side twice. But so far, so good. If the Nobel Peace Prize is the primary motivator for Donald Trump, then I'll take it. An Israeli official said a Gaza deal could be reached as soon as tonight, local time. So the deal in the initial framework that they designed had a lot of components that Hamas and the Palestinian resistance movement had conceded to, right? There were a lot of things that they had said yes to, right? Technocratic National Committee being in charge of the Gaza Strip and things of that nature, a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Strip, things like that. However, my suspicion is that there were a lot of additional things that Israel had slapped onto it, and the Americans had slapped onto it because Israel had redesigned the negotiation after Trump had a multilateral coalition of like Arab states and Middle Eastern states that, and even including like the French input alongside Saudi Arabia to put together this Gaza peace plan. But then Israel came in and added additional qualifiers to it. Trump actually also said, like, I'm going to be in charge of it. I don't know why he added his own name onto it somehow. And then they said, Tony Blair is obviously going to be a part of it as well. So there were parts about this deal that not just Hamas, but like no Palestinian resistance member would ever agree to, which is complete disarmament without, complete disarmament in general. So what Hamas said that I thought was really interesting and quite smart was that they would be willing to relinquish authority and dissolve as a political force. And on top of that, they would be willing to give their weapons, hand off their arms to whichever unit the Palestinian National Committee, this technocratic committee comprised of Palestinians that are democratically assigned, right? Eventually, that they would give the weapons to them, as in Palestinians would, of course, still have sovereignty, because they would still have arms, they would still have a standing military of sorts, rather than completely disarm. Because complete disarmament in the face of a genocide is a laughable position, right? It's utter lunacy. I mean, think about it. Like complete disarmament in the face of the Russian invasion would also be ridiculous. And this is something that I brought up when Russia was pushing for this maximalist position, right? Russia was like, "Oh, Ukraine has to engage in complete disarmament." That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. The only reason why I'm not like fully skeptical over this is because like I assume that, if I personally am not the first person to trust the United States of America or trust Israel, then I suspect that Hamas also is skeptical as well. So we shall see. It could be because, there is a level of genocide that where they just say enough is enough. Like, we can't take it anymore. We don't want more people to die. And they consider this to be the only way to end it. But as far as the genocide ending, without significant assurances that Israel will not immediately start bombing the Strip once again as soon as the prisoners of war have been released, without significant assurances, this deal is dead in the water. I don't know how this works, but mediators, the source close to the negotiator said, told the Palestinian side President Donald Trump planned to personally announce a permanent ceasefire and had offered assurances that the U.S. would not permit Israel to resume the war after retrieving the Israeli captives. Except those assurances don't really mean much, right? Okay, Matt Iglesias. Wait, what? How am I Matt Iglesias? I'm saying I will believe it when I see it. Okay, I have no confidence that Israel will abide by a commitment to complete cessation of hostilities. I just don't see. I don't trust Israel, and I do not trust the United States of America. We have a great team over there, great negotiations, and there are unfortunately great negotiators on their side also, said Trump Wednesday. But it's something I think will happen. Got a good chance of happening. Our final negotiation is with Hamas, and it seems to be going well. Soon after he made those remarks, Secretary of State Marco Rubio walked up to Trump and handed him a sheet of paper. I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we are very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly, he said. Multiple sources from Hamas and other Palestinian factions told DropSite that their central concern in these negotiations was that handing over all Israeli captives would remove nearly all of their leverage if it did not include a complete Israeli withdrawal. Israel has, as a matter of policy, systematically violated its ceasefire agreements with Hamas and also with Lebanon. In entering into those negotiations, Hamas negotiators accepted they were engaging a high-stakes gamble. And yes, the note itself that Marco Rubio handed over to Donald Trump said, "You need to approve a Truth Social post soon so you can announce a deal first." Our priorities are so cooked, man. Like, this is, if true, this is like world-changing events taking place. And the priorities of this administration are to make sure Trump is first to market with the announcement on his own personal social media platform that he had to create because he got banned off of Twitter after he did a insurrection. This is the country that we live in. I need you all to understand these are the circumstances. This is the country that we live in. So next time you see somebody that comes across as like really stupid, remember that like a ton of people voted for this guy. A fuck ton of people openly say they voted for this. Okay? That's what they say. News Nation claims a deal has been reached and Trump might visit the region. It is remarkable that the breaking information is coming from News Nation, dude. God damn, we are in such profoundly stupid times. Oh, yeah, dude. News Nation. Okay. News Nation correspondent reports Israel and Hamas have reached an agreement on the first phase of Trump's Gaza deal. Okay. I'm glad that News Nation correspondent is reporting that Israel and Hamas have reached an agreement on the first phase of the Trump Gaza deal, citing a source with direct knowledge of the negotiations. Just in from the White House, on Friday morning, this is CBS News, President Trump will visit the Walter Reed Medical Center for a planned meeting and remarks to the troops. While there, President Trump will stop by for his routine yearly checkup. He will then return to the White House. President Trump is considering going to the Middle East shortly thereafter. Yeah, we already covered the Israeli military escalating his death and destruction campaign and also utilizing like drones, like or automated armored personnel carriers equipped with bombs so they can turn around and because they're getting smoked in the APCs so hard that they're using little RC car style APCs. This is a risk, but we trust President Trump to be the guarantor of commitments made, said Musa Abu Marzouk, a senior Hamas leader, in an interview with DropSite on Monday. Had there been no commitment from the American president, we would never have agreed to take the risk, because we do not trust Netanyahu or his extremist right-wing team in the current Israeli government. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure they know that America is also untrustworthy. But I guess for them, they just don't really have any other options, you know? I guess America is the top dog in this process, and therefore they have to abide by America's demands. The USA, Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt have provided guarantees that the genocide will end with this agreement as long as the terms are abided by. That means we can expect to see Israel desperately try to convince Trump that Hamas has violated the deal daily. Yeah. They are being smart by inflating Trump's role since they know he wants that peace prize. I mean, I think they're inflating they're not even inflating Trump's role necessarily. Trump does have this power. Every American president has had this power. The only difference here is that they're inflating Trump's ego. They're not inflating Trump's role. They're inflating his ego because, I mean, they've run out of options, right? They don't have anything else. So if that's what it takes, then great. If that's what it actually takes to get to a permanent cessation of hostilities, to end this genocide, it is what it is. They did it with more comprehensive frameworks. They will do it again. I don't get your optimism. I don't know. I'm not saying that this is like, I am not saying that this is over. Okay? I'm not saying that this is over at all. As a matter of fact, I'm saying that Israel will most likely violate this agreement. They have never like fully signed an agreement similar to this. They've only signed like previous, I guess they have signed like a previous cessation of hostilities. Israeli officials say the agreement to end the war with Hamas will be signed Thursday, and the first group of hostages will be released on either Saturday or Sunday, according to N12. But a genocide can't just be tied off with it is what it is. No, I know. But at some point, you have to stop the hemorrhaging, right? The problem is, in the first ceasefire that they followed through on, they wouldn't allow the first phase to move on to the second phase. And the second phase was a withdrawal of troops, right? And it does seem to me like while everyone is like hugging and you know, slapping asses around there, and Hamas has responded to the deal. Yes, Hamas has said that they accept the deal. I am not so certain that this will end. I still believe that there will be potentially a violation from Israel. Now we know why they try to kill the negotiators. I mean, I don't know. I want to be hopeful. 5 hours ago from CNN, Israel assesses Hamas may not be able to return all remaining dead hostages, sources say. Maybe they'll use that as a reason. Maybe they'll use that as a reason to be like, Hamas is violating the deal. If they do violate it, they're pushing themselves into a corner of being the ultimate pariah. I mean, have they stopped? Has that stopped them in the past? The only way this stops is if America forces Israel to stop. Ball is in Netanyahu's court, says Trita Parsi from the Quincy Institute. Trump wants a deal. Israel's numbers are plummeting within MAGA. It risks hurting Trump if the war and the U.S. support for it continues endlessly. Yet Netanyahu is very talented at destroying deals and getting the U.S. to blame the Palestinians. Well, he used to be much more talented at blaming the Palestinians. I don't think he's as talented at blaming the Palestinians now. And if this ceasefire deal falls apart once more, I suspect that a lot of people will, even more people will recognize that it's Israel violating it, no matter how they try to posture as Hamas being the spoiler. I don't think that the United States will ever turn around and say, this is good, we believe Hamas, we trust Hamas, and if Israel violates the deal, they'll say, oh yeah, it was Israel that violated the deal, and we have to we have to stop Israel. That just won't happen. That has never happened historically, despite the fact that Israel has violated numerous deals with Democratic administrations, with Republican administrations. They have always blamed the Palestinians, and America has always also falsely blamed the Palestinians. Okay? That is the case. They always do that. So we shall see. Palestinian negotiators, after consultations with a range of factions, agreed to a deal that will keep Israeli forces in Gaza even after all Israeli captives are handed over to Israel. Throughout the negotiations over the past several months, Hamas has insisted it would not enter into a deal that did not include the complete withdrawal of the Israeli occupation forces. This is something they were not able to move, the source said. While the exact lines that Israeli forces will redeploy to as a part of the exchange of captives are still being worked out, Israeli forces will remain entrenched in Gaza. What is this? Hamas is a men of beauty. I have a question. Say Hamas dissolves, releases the left prisoners of war, gives up their arms, all that publicly. Israel won't be able to use them as an excuse to conduct the genocide. No. Like in the case of Ukraine, Ukraine can actually mount a significant defense. In the case of Hamas, it is an effort, but mostly symbolic as Israel is much stronger. No, it doesn't matter. You can't stop people from wanting to be free. It's just not going to happen. People will fight with their hands if they need to, as the Palestinians did initially. They fought with rocks. They fought with stones. Like there will always be people that have an undying need, a totally understandable need for freedom, emancipation. The only thing that will stop this is either the complete ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians or the dissolution of the Israeli apartheid. A senior Hamas official told Dropsite that the Palestinian negotiators have faced an unprecedented pressure from Arab and Islamic mediators over the past 48 hours to make significant concessions and to quickly reach an agreement on the aspects of Trump's plan that address the exchange of captives, a ceasefire, and the resumption of aid. The source close to negotiators said that as a part of the agreement, aid deliveries will resume at levels consistent with the January 2025 ceasefire deal. Israel unilaterally abandoned that agreement in March when it imposed a full-spectrum blockade on Gaza, resumed its campaign of terror bombings, and subsequently unleashed a ground invasion of Gaza City in August. The source said 600 trucks of aid per day would enter Gaza under the new agreement. What the United Nations has said in the past is the minimum amount needed in Gaza. Israel released roughly 2,000 Palestinians it is holding captive in its prisons and military camps. The bulk of these will consist of Palestinians taken from Gaza after October 7 and will include all women and children. In Trump's original plan presented on September 29th, Israel would also free 250 Palestinians sentenced to life terms. There are ongoing negotiations over the exact number of Palestinians to be released and which, if any, of the most high-profile Palestinian resistance figures serving life sentences in Israel might be freed. Hamas has consistently demanded freedom for Marwan Barghouti, what a lot of people refer to as like the Palestinian Nelson Mandela. However, he is the single most popular Palestinian political leader whom Israel has sentenced to 5 life terms in 2004. Marwan Barghouti is a more popular figure in the eyes of all Palestinians, both in the West Bank and in Gaza, than Hamas ever could be, for the record. So that's something to consider here, especially when looking at, especially looking at this from the perspective of Hamas just simply wants to remain in power. Hamas simply wants to remain in power. If they wanted to, they would never demand the release of Marwan Barghouti. They would just never do that, because someone like Marwan Barghouti actually threatens their grip of power. Right? Here's Jacob Magid, U.S. Bureau Chief, Times of Israel. Hamas is committed to securing release of Marwan Barghouti as a part of the deal to end the Gaza war. Source familiar tells Times of Israel. Hamas's leadership has relayed to interlocutors that Barghouti's fate remains absolutely central to these talks, the source says. Barghouti is currently serving a life sentence in Israeli prison for planning attacks during the Second Intifada that killed 5 civilians. He has denied the charges against him while rejecting the Israeli court's jurisdiction. If you recall, Itamar Ben-Gvir went to the prison that Marwan Barghouti is being held hostage at, and actually brought him out to humiliated him, or tried to humiliate him. The 66-year-old has been described as a potential successor to the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, as he has appealed among broad swaths of the Palestinian population while maintaining support for a 2-state solution. Israelis, of course, say no way. We saw what happened with Sinwar. Israeli Minister Ron Dermer, who recently co-ordered the assassination of Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya with Netanyahu, now sits face-to-face at the negotiating table in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. That is a crazy pig. The guys on this side of the table, quite literally, not even a month ago, ordered the assassination of the guys on this side of the table. Straight up. And what's really shocking, or what's really remarkable about this, is that the guys on that side of the table used to be different guys. Israel killed the other guys. So now these are the guys. Well, some of them were supposed to be on the table regardless, but isn't that nuts? Yeah, just remember that next time someone tries to tell you like Israel wanted a ceasefire. It was always Hamas that's like up the bag, up the ceasefire. They've killed the immediate relatives of the people on that side of the table too, by the way, like straight up. Annihilated their entire families. Hamas has also advocated for the release of Ahmed Sadat, General Secretary of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and Abdullah Barghouti, a senior commander of the Qassam Brigades, who was sentenced in 2003 to 67 life terms, the longest sentence ever imposed on a Palestinian by Israel. In addition to the 20 living Israeli captives, there are believed to be 28 deceased. Hamas officials have said that some of these bodies are buried under rubble of buildings or tunnels bombed by Israel or in areas currently under Israeli military control, and that it will take time to retrieve them. Hamas official told DropSite that an agreement will be made that would provide more time to recover the bodies of deceased Israeli captives. Now, this is one of the reasons why you logistically have to stop the bombing. This is something that I brought up in previous ceasefire arrangements where Israel was like, no, we don't want to stop the bombing, but you also have to give us the hostages. And everyone was like, you can't even do that. Like, how are we supposed to extract the hostages when you are bombing everything, including the hostages? On Wednesday, Trump dispatched his son-in-law, here we go, Jared Kushner, a special envoy Steve Witkoff, to the Egyptian resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh to try and secure a deal. The Israeli delegation is headed by Ron Dermer, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Minister of Strategic Affairs. Trump said today, in anticipation of a deal, he would likely travel to the region, maybe Sunday. Trump had given Hamas and Israel a deadline of Friday to complete the negotiations. He is very eager for the Nobel Peace Prize, and therefore he wants the problem solved today or tomorrow so that the vote, will be in his favor for receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, Abu Marzouk told Dropsite. Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya, who survived an Israeli assassination attempt in Doha, Qatar on September 9th, literally 1 month ago, is heading Hamas's negotiation team, sitting across from the guys who ordered his assassination. The top political negotiator for the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Mohammed al-Hindi, is also directly participating in the talks, as is a representative of the left-wing Party for the Liberation of Palestine. Israel al-Quds Force is the second largest armed resistance faction in Gaza, holds an undisclosed number of Israeli captives, along with those in the custody of Hamas's Qassam brigades. Earlier on Wednesday, Ziad al-Nakale, the Secretary General of PIJ, appeared in a rare video address. The resistance is engaged in fierce negotiating battle under what is called the Trump Plan, which also carries within it the declaration that the Palestinians should completely surrender to the enemy. Even so, the resistance has shown its willingness to negotiate on the basis that there are clauses that can be dealt with positively. First among them, the prisoner exchange clause, which could be completed in the coming few days, al-Nakale said. But we must be prepared to confront the enemy's possible attempts to turn the negotiations into an entry point for the surrender of our people and our resistance. The enemy and its allies must know that we cannot submit to their terms and dictates after all the price in sacrifices that our heroic people have paid. Hamas sources have made clear to Dropsite that they believe the only path to a brokered agreement to end the genocide rests with Trump. The alternative is an indefinite continuation of the armed struggle against the U.S.-backed Israeli military. There is no other deal to be taken. Either this or return to fight with full American support coupled with Arab and Islamic passivity and letdown, said the source close to the negotiators. He said that while the deal is problematic, it contains some terms that Hamas and other Palestinian factions pushed for in their response to Trump, including deferring major issues that would alter the future of Gaza and Palestine itself. No surrender, no disarming, no mass exile, but most of all, a permanent end to the war to be announced by Trump. When Hamas offered its official response to Trump's 20-point plan last Friday, the movement's leadership took the position that it only had a mandate to enter into a deal on issues directly related to the Gaza war, but it asserted that negotiations on the bulk of Trump's proposal, which contains sweeping terms that will impact the future governance of Gaza, including demilitarizing and disarming Gaza and the deployment of foreign troops, would require the involvement of all Palestinian factions, not just Hamas. All of these issues, including Israel's demand that Hamas and other Palestinian resistance groups surrender their weapons in Gaza will be fully demilitarized, will be deferred to future negotiations. It seems like Hamas is saying yes to the first phase, which is just the complete release of all of the prisoners of war and perhaps not just the prisoners of war, but also the killed Israelis as well. What makes you think that Trump is the actual person pushing Israel to the table? I don't trust Trump and I don't trust Israel. I do trust the resistance forces in terms of like knowing what's knowing what's best for them, right? And therefore, I assume that they're seeing something different in the way that this has in the way that this has been conducted. And that is the reason why they're conceding to the first phase without getting assurances, or maybe they did get assurances for the second phase, if we are to use the terminology that was utilized in the previous negotiations, right? Weak assumption is not real, and the U.S. have reneged on deals plenty of times during the 2 years of genocide. I don't think you guys are understanding what I am saying, okay? You are misunderstanding what I am saying. I'm not saying I trust Israel or I trust America to abide by this deal. I'm saying that I'm assuming that the Palestinian resistance leadership has seen something different from at least the American side that gives them more confidence to abide by, more confidence to say yes to the first phase of this ceasefire negotiation. This does not mean that Israel will not turn around and violate it as they have done so in prior ceasefire negotiations, either ceasefire negotiations that they never actually implemented or even ceasefire negotiations that they did implement and then didn't follow on and reneged and continued bombing Palestinians. I suspect that there is something similar here as well. I suspect, judging by what Israel has done in the past, that this is how they will operate, that they will, somehow find a way to turn around and blame this on Hamas again and then continue bombing once they extract all the hostages, because the hostages were seen as like a like a political hurdle that they must clear, right? That's what I think. Has Hamas been in direct contact with Trump for the latest negotiations? I seems so, yeah. The next round of negotiations will be very tricky, but going back to the genocide will not be easy, even though it's probable, said the source close to the Palestinian negotiators. The internal calculus among the lead negotiators, he said, was the cost-benefit analysis would favor accepting it. The next negotiations must be conducted in a very smart way. Perhaps the reason why they're doing it is because of what Israel states, which is that the idea that, they have consistently pummeled Gaza and it killed far too many people. And therefore, Hamas's calculation here is like they can't take it anymore. They can't. And that's the reason why they're conceding to everything. Maybe that's the reason. However, there is no assurances that Israel will stop bombing regardless. Scahill, Hamas knew the only path to a brokered agreement to end the genocide rested with Trump. There is no other deal to be taken, either this or return to the fight with full American support coupled with Arab and Islamic passivity and letdown, said the source. That has been the case. Breaking from Trump, he has finally announced it. I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps towards a strong, durable, everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America, and we thank the meteors from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who work with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Yeah, also, Hamas did technically beat Donald Trump to the announcement by revealing this information to drop site. That's neither here nor there. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Please read previous message. Palestinian here, remind chat not to infantilize our armed resistance as they're fully aware and have decades of experience about what Israel's goals and tactics are, as well as the United States. I'm sure they're fully prepared in the case that Israel blows up these negotiations as well. Do not forgive. We have been dealing with these ethnic supremacists for over 77 years. Yes, but that's the only reason why I said I don't have any confidence in Israel. I don't have any confidence in America, but I do have confidence in the leaders of the resistance movement making the correct calculation. They recognize that it's a gamble, but if they're taking this approach, if they're agreeing to this decision, then very clearly, this is probably there's more confidence
from Washington, D.C.
on their
Alan,
side.
so we're all waiting on.